Imagine flipping through TV channels and finding a live feed of your own living room, only it's a few seconds ahead of real life. The screen shows your future mundane moments, arguments yet to happen, accidents about to unfold. Would you keep watching, even as the images grow more disturbing? For one family, this nightmare became reality. Their television became a portal, broadcasting their lives, unedited, unfiltered, and always a step ahead. This is where our story begins. An ordinary family, an ordinary home, and an extraordinary unlisted channel that revealed far more than they ever wanted to see. Meet the Andersons, Michael, Sarah, and their kids, Emily and Josh. Suburban life, routines, and a sense of safety defined their days. They didn't believe in the supernatural. Logic and reason ruled their world. But everything changed the night a strange channel appeared on their TV. It showed their home, their lives, but always just moments ahead. At first, they dismissed it as a glitch. But soon they realized they were the unwilling audience of their own future. One late night, Michael stumbled upon the channel. No number, no name, just a live image of their kitchen from an impossible angle. He tried to rationalize it, a neighbor's camera, a technical error, but the details were too precise. Sarah's yellow teapot, the exact clutter on the counter. The channel vanished as quickly as it appeared, but the unease lingered. Michael couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching. Days later, Emily found the channel. It showed their living room, her books, the crooked picture frame, everything in place but eerily empty. She called her mum, who brushed it off as a harmless oddity, but Emily sensed something was wrong. The image was too real, too familiar, and yet not quite right. The Andersons began to realize this was no ordinary broadcast. Alone at home, Sarah saw the channel too. Her kitchen, every detail exact, but the timing felt off. She and Michael watched together that night as the channel showed their hallway, empty and silent, but somehow waiting. No channel info, no explanation. The logical answers slipped away. This wasn't a neighbor's feed or a technical glitch. It was their home, their lives, broadcast in real time, or maybe just ahead, and it was always watching. The Andersons couldn't ignore the channel anymore. It replayed their daily lives. Sarah in the garden, Josh with his toys, Emily at the table. Sometimes delayed, sometimes ahead. The scenes were mundane, but stripped of context, they became deeply unsettling. The children noticed the timing was off. Emily felt a chill watching herself struggle with homework she'd just finished. The channel was a silent echo, a reflection that didn't quite match reality. With each viewing, their unease grew. Who was watching them? And why was their ordinary life being broadcast back to them on a channel that shouldn't exist? The days that followed were filled with a quiet tension. A watchful stillness had descended upon the Anderson home. Michael found himself drawn to the unlisted channel with a morbid fascination. He told himself he was observing, gathering data, but deep down he knew he was scared. One evening he sat alone in the dim light of the living room. The television was on, tuned to that silent, nameless broadcast. It showed their kitchen. Sarah was in there, he knew. He could hear the faint sounds of her tidying up after dinner. The image on the screen was unnervingly clear, almost too perfect, like a stage set for something inevitable. On the screen, he watched a silent drama unfold. He saw Sarah's hand reach for her favorite blue ceramic mug, the one she'd bought on their anniversary trip. He saw her other hand, holding a dish towel, inadvertently nudge the mug's base. On the television, the blue mug wobbled precariously on the very edge of the granite countertop. For a horrifying, suspended moment, it teetered, Then with a silent, graceful arc, it fell. The screen showed it striking the tiled floor, shattering into a dozen silent pieces, a miniature, soundless explosion of ceramic. Michael's breath caught in his throat. He opened his mouth. A warning, a shout, something. But the sound died before it could form. Because in that exact instant, from the actual kitchen, came the sharp, unmistakable crash, the sickening sound of porcelain meeting tile. It was identical, utterly, terrifyingly identical to the silent event he had just witnessed on the screen. He leaped from the couch. He raced into the kitchen. The scene before him was a mirror image of the television's recent broadcast. Sarah stood amidst the scattered, glittering shards of the blue mug. Her hand was still outstretched, her face etched with shock and surprise. Just seconds. The channel had shown it just seconds before it happened. The air left Michael's lungs in a ragged gasp. This was no echo, no delayed recording of past events. The chilling truth settled upon him, cold and heavy. The channel wasn't looking back, it was looking forward. It was predicting the present, moments before it solidified into reality. The unease that had been a constant low hum in their lives began to sharpen. It twisted in his gut. This wasn't just strange. It wasn't just unsettling. This was impossible, and it was happening in their home. The unlisted channel was a harbinger, a silent prophet of minor domestic disasters, and perhaps of far worse. Michael Anderson, an engineer, believed in cause and effect, but what he witnessed defied understanding. They had to understand more, test it. Sarah was hesitant, but Michael insisted they needed answers. The experiment. At 3 p.m, Emily would walk into the living room with a red encyclopedia. At 2:59, they watched the unlisted channel. The screen showed Emily entering the living room at 3 p.m. with the book. 10 seconds later, the real Emily did the same. The channel wasn't replaying their lives, it was pre-playing them. Their free will felt illusory. Who was the director? The Anderson family's existence was, well, irrevocably altered. The rhythm of their daily lives, once predictable and comforting, now beat to a new, unsettling tempo. The television, that ubiquitous fixture of modern life, transformed from a source of distraction and entertainment into something far more significant. It became an oracle, a silent, all-seeing eye that held glimpses of their immediate destiny. They found themselves irresistibly drawn to its flickering screen, not out of choice, but out of a nervous, compulsive need to know, to see what was coming, even if it was just the next 5 minutes. The channel's predictions continued with relentless accuracy, always mundane, always just a few minutes ahead. The shrill ring of the telephone would first be seen on the unlisted channel, a full minute before the actual device shattered the quiet of their home. Headlights would sweep across the televised driveway moments before the crunch of tires on gravel. Young Josh, prone to minor accidents, would be seen spilling his juice on screen just seconds before the real-life accident. The ordinary, now preordained, became a source of constant anxiety. Their natural spontaneity began to wither, replaced by a pervasive, hesitant caution. Before answering the doorbell, one of them would furtively check the channel. A glance at the screen preceded picking up the phone. Conversations grew clipped, distracted. Their eyes would dart towards the television, searching for a preview of what would happen next. They were living their lives on a peculiar, unnerving delay, always a step behind the televised version of themselves. Their present moments felt like reruns, experienced second-hand, stripped of any genuine surprise. The burden of this constant foreknowledge became almost unbearable. It was an insidious weight pressing down on their spirits. Imagine knowing every minor event before it occurred. The spilled milk, the dropped toast, the late mail delivery. Each tiny prediction reinforced their powerless state. Their lives, once their own, now felt like a script being fed to them in real time. The dread wasn't just about these small predictions. It was about the larger, unspoken fear. What else would the channel show? What truly significant, life-altering event was waiting to be previewed on that silent, unblinking screen? One afternoon, Emily, alone and bored, found an unlisted broadcast. It showed their hallway empty at first. Then her brother Josh appeared running. He tripped on the rug. "Josh, watch out!" Emily screamed. He stopped, surprised. The fall hadn't happened. Michael rushed in. The screen dissolved into static, then cleared. Josh was unharmed. A new terror dawned on them. They could change the future. It was an interactive, unpredictable system. The game had changed, with impossibly high stakes. The fragile sense of control did not last. It was a fleeting illusion before the channel unveiled its insidious capabilities. A few nights later, Michael found himself alone. He switched it on. The image was their bedroom, not with peace, but impending conflict. He saw himself and Sarah arguing, a full-blown, venomous fight. He watched, horrified. This hadn't happened, not yet. He was frozen. The argument escalated. The dark forecast had become a self-fulfilling prophecy, leaving them shaken. The channel's dark turn continued, shifting to something more subtle, yet profoundly more disturbing. One afternoon, Sarah saw their kitchen on the unlisted channel. A shadow detached itself from under the table. A tall, thin shadow gliding across the floor. Sarah gasped. An intruder? A ghost? The house felt different, watched by unseen eyes. The channel showed similar anomalies, insidious whispers of a presence. Josh complained of a shadow man in his room. The channel was hinting at a terrifying reality. They might not be alone. The channel's forecasts escalated, depicting genuine physical danger for the Anderson family. One morning, Michael watched the unlisted channel. The screen showed their backyard. Emily was playing on the swing set. The perspective shifted, focusing on a crack in the branch. Michael saw the crack widen. The branch gave way. He rushed outside, screaming Emily's name. He yanked Emily from the swing seconds before the branch crashed. The channel had given him a minute's warning, saving his daughter. Later, Sarah saw Josh in the garage reaching for dangerous chemicals. Sarah ran and snatched him back. The silent forecast had allowed them to intervene, but the stress was unbearable. The house now felt like a trap, with the unlisted channel as its cruel orchestrator. The interventions left a residue of fear that seemed to seep into every corner of the Anderson home. The ordinary sounds of a household now sounded like harbingers of doom. Every shadow seemed to lengthen, to take on a menacing form. The comfort and security they once associated with their home had been systematically stripped away, replaced by a pervasive sense of being under siege. Michael and Sarah found themselves arguing more frequently. Sleep was fitful, punctuated by nightmares. Emily avoided the living room television. The house itself began to feel actively hostile. There was no escape within their own walls. They considered moving. It seemed tied to them, to their family, to their unfolding destiny. The Anderson home had transformed from a sanctuary into the very stage for their deepest fears. One bleak Tuesday evening, the channel's forecasts showed Josh's bedroom from a strange low angle. The rain lashed against the windows. The Andersons watched in horror as Josh stood on a chair reaching for the high window. The window overlooked a steep drop. The televised Josh began to push the window outwards. He was leaning precariously against the dark, rain-swept night. Sarah screamed. She and Michael scrambled from the sofa. A dark shape seemed to materialize behind him on screen. It looked like something was urging him forward. The dark forecasts had now shown them a vision of true peril, tinged with malevolence. The image burned into their minds. Josh, the open window, the storm, the dark, suggestive shape. Michael and Sarah didn't think. They reacted. Pure, unadulterated parental instinct fueled their ascent up the stairs. Each step was a lifetime. Each thud of their feet on the wooden treads echoed the frantic beating of their hearts. The house seemed to hold its breath, the only sound the drumming rain and their own ragged gasps. They burst into Josh's room, a whirlwind of desperate fear. The scene was exactly as the television had foretold, a horrifying tableau vivante. Josh was there, on the chair, reaching, the window wide open to the tempestuous night. Sarah screamed his name, a sound torn from the very depths of her soul. Michael lunged, covering the small distance in a single desperate leap. He snatched Josh back from the precipice, pulling him into a fierce, trembling embrace. The cold, rain-laced wind whipped into the room, a chilling reminder of what had almost been. Josh, startled and confused by the sudden frantic intervention, began to cry. He hadn't understood the danger. He was just a little boy, caught in a game, perhaps influenced by something far beyond his comprehension. Safe, for now. They had done it. They had cheated the televised fate. Downstairs, Emily watched, her small face pale, her eyes still glued to the unlisted channel. As her parents reached Josh in reality, the image on the screen flickered violently, static erupted, a screeching, tearing sound, almost like a digital scream of frustration, filled the living room for a horrifying instant before the screen went blank. Not off, just blank. A dead, grey emptiness. Then, slowly, the image of Josh's room reformed. But it was different now. It showed Michael holding Josh, Sarah sinking to her knees, weeping with relief. The immediate danger had passed. The future, as shown moments before, had been averted, but the victory was hollow, tainted. The chilling image of the shadowy form behind Josh on the screen lingered in their minds. Had it been a trick of the light, a figment of their terror-stricken imaginations, or had they intervened not just against an accident, but against a malevolent influence? The thought was terrifying. Stopping one event, one horrifying glimpse of the future, felt like a monumental effort. But what if the channel, or whatever controlled it, simply recalibrated? What if it showed something else, something worse? The power to change the immediate future was a terrifying double-edged sword. They had won this battle, but the war, they instinctively knew, was far from over. The near tragedy with Josh became a grim turning point. The Andersons realized with chilling certainty that they couldn't afford to ignore the unlisted channel. It wasn't just a passive observer. It was a predictor of potentially lethal events. Their home transformed. It was no longer a sanctuary. It became a command post in a silent, terrifying war against an unseen enemy. One parent was always designated on watch, their eyes constantly flicking towards the television, which now remained perpetually tuned to the silent, unlisted broadcast. Sleep became a luxury, snatched in uneasy shifts, haunted by the auras of potential disasters. They developed a system, hasty whispers, coded gestures. If the channel showed a minor accident, a spilled glass, a tripped step, they would intervene swiftly, calmly. Sarah saw herself about to slip on a misplaced toy. A quick movement, and the toy was gone, the fall averted. Michael saw a pot about to boil over on the stove while he was distracted by a phone call. He ended the call abruptly, rushing to the kitchen just in time. These small victories were fleeting, offering little comfort. They were merely successful deflections of an endless barrage of minor misfortunes, a constant, draining battle of wits and reflexes against the pre-screened future. The children, Emily and Josh, lived in a state of subdued anxiety. They learned to react instantly to their parents' sudden shouts or urgent commands, often without understanding why. Play became hesitant, laughter rare. The vibrant energy of their youth was slowly being overshadowed by the oppressive atmosphere of their home. Emily, in particular, became almost preternaturally observant, her young eyes constantly scanning her surroundings, trying to anticipate the dangers her parents were so desperately fighting. The burden of foreknowledge was heavy, crushing the spontaneity and joy from their everyday existence, replacing it with a grim, relentless vigilance. The strain was immense. Michael and Sarah grew gaunt, their faces etched with worry and exhaustion. Conversations were clipped, functional, focused on the next potential threat. The simple act of leaving a room unattended felt like a dereliction of duty. They were prisoners in their own home, bound by the terrible responsibility the channel had thrust upon them. They were successfully stopping some futures, yes, but at what cost? Their lives were no longer their own. They were reactive, constantly on edge, living not in the present, but in the terrifying few minutes broadcast from the immediate future. The channel dictated their every waking moment. The family's desperate dance with destiny took a sinister turn. They learned a horrifying new rule. Stopping one future simply made way for another, often worse. The force behind the channel resented their interference, correcting the narrative with crueler alternatives. When Michael narrowly avoided an electric shock, the channel adapted, rewriting the script to ensure disaster in the form of a fire. Their attempts to control the future were potentially making things escalate, shattering their fragile sense of agency. The channel was an active participant, a malevolent storyteller, and the Andersons were merely puppets in its horrifying narrative. The realization that their interventions could worsen the outcome plunged the Andersons into a deeper despair. Michael decided they had to attack the source, the television itself. He unplugged the main television, but then Emily let out a cry. The small portable TV was on, tuned to the unlisted channel showing the living room, an invisible, inescapable network. The screen was displaying a live feed of their bedroom. The unlisted channel had found a new screen. It had adapted. Their enemy was far more insidious than they could have ever imagined. One night it vanished, gone. Michael sat frozen, hissing static. Every other channel was normal. The unlisted channel was wiped clean. Relief washed over him. Was this truly the end or just another intermission? Silence descended. They walked on tiptoes, bracing themselves. Freedom felt alien, adrift in fragile hope and lingering fear. The channel was gone, but its fingerprints remained. Nightmares echoed. A family forever changed, forever looking over their shoulders. Their home, a mausoleum of fear. A deeper fear held them captive. What if it was tied to them? Could they outrun its unblinking eye? A chilling reminder of the terror they survived. What was this unlisted channel? Was it a window into a fixed future? Or a malevolent entity manipulating their lives? Did it feed on their fear? They fought back, altering the script, a fall averted. Were their struggles part of its design? Did they ever have free will? The question haunts them. The channel is gone, but the family is changed forever. Fate or fiendish design? A warning? The terror lingers.